Hey viewers and friends, welcome to another video, and today's video is going to be my top 10 list from the 90s. I spent a lot of my older childhood and sort of teen years growing up in the 90s, and that's really when I got into watching movies big time. And we all know there's been some awesome movies released, especially all sort of the kid and family classics from the early to mid 90s. And I think the 90s is one sort of decade that's often forgotten about in cinema. So I've come up with this list. I mean, there's a ton of other movies that I could go on and on about, but I'll probably save that for another video. In fact, I will make like my childhood favourites from the 90s video, because there's a ton of other movies that I want to go into. But for now, this is my top 10 list from the 90s, so again I'll start at number 10 and work my way down to number 1. So sitting at number 10 goes to The Matrix. Everyone knows what this is about. Keanu Reeves plays in this movie in what I consider to be one of his best roles. Brilliant effects for the time that still hold up really, really well to this day, and it definitely kick-started the sci-fi genre back up, I think. Sitting at number 9 goes to my, hands down, my favourite horror movie from the 90s, and that is Scream. We all know the character of Ghostface, pretty well known cast as well, and it definitely, again, kick-started the horror genre or another genre, and especially the slasher genre, so excellent movie. Sitting at number 8 goes to The Rock. This is probably my favourite action movie of all time, starring Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery. Brilliant action movie about a bunch of US Marines who take over Alcatraz. Sitting at number 7 goes to Schindlers List, one of my favourite Spielberg movies and probably my favourite World War II themed movie. It's hard to say this is a great movie just due to the subject matter, but it's certainly really, really interesting. It's pretty long, but it definitely tells a really, really good, heartfelt story. Sitting at number 6 goes to my favourite animated movie and Pixar's best movie in my opinion, that's Toy Story. I remember seeing this in the theatre and absolutely loving it. I get a real nostalgic burst every time I put this one on. It just brings back so many childhood memories of growing up and all that. Great movie. Sitting at number 5, and I really couldn't do a top 90s list to not include Home Alone. We all know how awesome and fun this movie is. I've watched it heaps and heaps of times, so that had to have a spot on this list. Sitting at number 4 is probably my favourite sports movie. I grew up on it, and I still even watch it from time to time. I still think it holds up pretty good and is a lot of fun. That's Walt Disney's The Big Green. If you're a fan of mid-90s family sport movies and you haven't checked this one out, do so. It's got a pretty well-known cast from a lot of other 90s movies. The goalie, played by Patrick Reaney there on the cover, is hilarious. Basically, every time the opposition team gets ready to take a goal, he sees images like whatever the team name's called. There's a team called the Knights, so he imagines they're a bunch of knights riding horses. There's another team that he thinks are ninjas, Vikings, I think, pirates. But yeah, it's just a lot of fun and a classic Disney sports movie. You know, they start off terrible and then make it to the championship. You know the storyline, but yeah, great 90s sports film. Next up is my favourite baseball movie of all time, and that is The Sandlot. Again, classic 90s sports movies. I think it was actually, it was filmed, I think, 93 or 94, but it was set in the 60s. about a group of friends who love playing baseball in an old Sandlot, and then a new boy moves to the neighbourhood called Scotty Smalls. Eventually he gets in with this group and they become the best of friends, and then one day he steals his stepfather's baseball from his room and hits a home run over the fence, and the sort of second half of the movie they're trying to rescue it from a massive dog that lives over the fence. So a lot of fun, a lot of funny moments throughout Sandlot. Sitting at number 2 goes To the War, starring Kevin Costner and Elijah Wood. In my opinion, hands down Elijah Wood's best performance. Yes, I even think it's better than what he did in Lord of the Rings. Kevin Costner was also great in this movie. If you haven't checked it out, I can't recommend this movie enough. Came out in 1994, but it's set in the summer of 1970 in Mississippi, and the main storyline is about war, of course. So Kevin Costner, who plays Stephen in the movie, comes back from the Vietnam War, still fighting demons, has a lot of visions from what happened, and then his 2 children, Stu and Lydia, are involved with the fight between the local bullies. They build a big tree house, and that's how they defend themselves from the bullies. Great storyline. It deals with a lot of issues, around family, death, war, racism, poverty. But yeah, this is a fantastic 90s movie that I think everyone should definitely check out, and there's some great southern dialogue throughout as well. Okay, sitting at number 1 goes to none other than Terminator 2. I love this movie. James Cameron's best movie in my opinion. Brilliant effects. When I first saw this movie, I don't think I saw it when it first came out. It probably was a few years later, but I was blown away by the effects in this movie, and they still hold up phenomenally to this day. One of my favourite sci-fi movies, my favourite Terminator movie. Just fantastic. So that's it for my top 10 favourite movies from the 90s. I wanted to give a quick mention to 2 that I really enjoyed, but unfortunately they've never seen the light of day on DVD. The first one's Josh and Sam. I loved that movie. I hired it on VHS all the time growing up. And then another one is a hidden gem. It's a brilliant Irish movie called War of the Buttons, which came out in 1994, I think, about 2 groups of teenagers from 2 Irish villages, and they're at war with each other. Brilliantly told, great cast of characters, and the scenery is magnificent. So yeah, if you've seen those 2 movies, definitely keen to hear from fans of them. Or if you've seen any of these movies, rate and comment, and thanks a lot for watching.